sure.
phrases.
Pretty sure. Good morning, John.
Good morning, and please stop talking about food. It's,
No breakfast this morning, John?
And I understand you've been talking a lot about food, considering the fact on Liberation Day, before, probably when most of us were asleep. From what I understand, you were participating in a conference or a something on food security in the territory. Did that actually happen? Because I know you mentioned it at the Guam Education Board meeting.
No, absolutely. We had an opportunity just to participate in an informal conversation with members of the House Rules Committee, Chairman Jim McGovern from Massachusetts, other representatives, including our own Congressman Mike Nicholas, and from the other territories, from Congressman Sablon from the CNMI, and then the representatives from American Samoa and the Virgin Islands as well, also Puerto Rico, and then various representatives from the community. I was there. There were two public health commissioners and two nonprofit organizations as well. So it looks like Chairman McGovern, as the House Rules Committee chair, is approaching the issue of hunger not only on a personal level, which has been one of his priorities, but recognizing that hunger, like poverty, really isn't contained in one committee. It's really something that every committee in Congress, every agency on Guam and in the states really needs to look at, very broadly. So he's using his platform as a way to highlight the issues of hunger in the territories around the country. And then I believe he hopes that it'll culminate in a White House conference on hunger, and hopefully raise awareness and prioritize the issues of hunger and poverty for this administration and Congress. So my role was really just to share some of the things that were going on. I believe the congressman suggested my participation just because of the role that Department of Education has played with regard to food and food issues, especially during the pandemic. I woke up at 4 in the morning to get ready for 5 in the morning, a conversation. And the 4 things I touched on was, number one, just the ability to feed all of our kids in school at no cost because of a special provision that was authorized by Congress under the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act of 2010. And so that's called the Community Eligibility Provision that we piloted back in 2014. And now all 41 schools, all students are able to take advantage of the school breakfast and school lunch at no cost to them. So we still have to pay for it. We get a better reimbursement rate and so forth, but it allows us to stop worrying about whether kids have the opportunity to eat. The second thing we talked about was the flexibility that we've been given over this pandemic to shift from traditional cafeteria serving of meals to what we did on Guam with this flexibility, doing 12 sites for grab and go back in March of last year, and then shifting to non-perishable food items at all school sites. That really took us through July of this year. And that enabled us again to push 7 million school meals out to students during this pandemic. The third thing we talked about was the TFAP program. And now that of course is an ongoing program. We've been doing it for years. It's just that the demand for food, when we reopened TFAP after the shutdown, we reopened in May, I believe, of 2020. And I think you remember the news story from that day was the long traffic lines in PD. And we were just completely unprepared we had 5,000 bags that we were going to give out, but the traffic was much longer. So I think you'll remember we shifted to trying to do a regional one in TZ and Agate Mayor's office, but people were still lining up at these really early hours in the morning, 2 to 3 in the morning, in their cars and just waiting, because I would wake up to calls like at 7 in the morning where people were complaining, I've been waiting here for 4 hours. I go, wait a minute, what time did they get there? And it turns out people were really desperate for food, and they were coming in so early in the morning, which was not a safe way to handle it. So We now have shifted to the mayors. They've been very strong partners in allowing us to do distributions through the mayor's offices on a rotating basis, and then the mayors then work with their residents to let them know when those distributions are happening. So that's allowed us to push about over 2 million units of food out to the families through the TFAP program. And remember that for the TFAP program there's an eligibility component, and it's really kind of aligned with SNAP recipients. During the pandemic, we raised it from about 250 to 400% of poverty to widen the eligibility, knowing that people had lost their jobs, people were cutting hours, and so that flexibility that we were given is perfect. And then the fourth thing is the upcoming program that we talked about last week, the pandemic EBT program, which really which provides every student a support of up to between $1,200 and $1,300 to address the impact from last year's school closures, and they will get that funding loaded up on a card and be able to go to the store to purchase food for the next year. So those plans are still in the works. What I've been hearing about, again, you've been talking about the RISE Act and how that's going to work and when that's going to happen. And the only thing I keep thinking about is the long lines at the mayor's offices that that have come about because of people wanting to make sure they're ready to go. So it's my plan. I've got to check in with my staff to make sure I look in on the distribution plan for these cards, which are expected to go out towards late August. I think August 20th is the target date. But we're really trying to make sure. I need to make sure that this is as smooth and easy as possible. Don't put the burden, on our families to take advantage of this support. So that was our contribution to talk about. Obviously there are lots of challenges. I mean, one of the things I emphasized to the chairman is that the pandemic, as tough as it has been because of the health situation, the urgency and the flexibility that has come along with these federal funds is exactly what we need to continue after the pandemic. I mean, the supports are great, but having the ability to be innovative, to be flexible, to be able to change direction as the local conditions require, that's really been helpful. And not just here, but the other territories are saying the same thing. This flexibility that you've given because of the unique situation, that's what we've all been asking for, so that you don't get caught in the bureaucratic processes or the technicalities, but can actually push the funds out for support. So I did get some sleep after that, but it was an interesting conversation, and if it culminates in a White House conference, we're looking forward to being part of that conversation as well.
So in terms of the meeting and your progress report, because you did have quite a lot of things that you touched on before the Guam Education Board Tuesday night with regard to the latest with preparations for the reopening and the return of face-to-face. So if you could just kind of give us a progress report as well here on the link.
So the magic number for today is 21, and that is 21 days until the first day of school for our kids. August 12th is the first day of school. We have 21 days. I'm including weekends because I know people don't want to rush right to that day. So 21 days that we have to finalize and make sure we're ready to go on day one, again, which is August 12th, 2021, the first day of classes. Between now and then, we do plan to have, push an informational campaign through the various, through radio, through our TV partners, through social media, to really update and make sure that the questions that we're getting from parents and students and employees can be put out there and and updated and do it right as people are focusing in on the start of the school year, because we're starting to see some of those questions now that people are focusing on the start on the start of the school year. So they're focusing so we're starting to get those bits and pieces of, hey, I registered for online. What if I want to go to face-to-face? Can you confirm what the schedules will be? And also vice versa. Can I register my kindergartner now for online? So we're going to sort through all those and try to, do to put the information out there so that people don't have to ask some of those questions if they can just get it, updated, generally speaking. So I look forward to that over the next 3 weeks as we head into the school year. I mean, of course, that's going to include the safety protocols, which I think are very important to make sure people understand. We're coming back, but it's still in a COVID-19 environment. So here's what, is going to still be in place. Number two, I think the question we're getting the most is the schedule for face-to-face learning. And as much as I've talked about it, and again, even last week, I informed you that, I have submitted draft language for review and consideration for the next public health guidance on school. We're expecting, and in our conversations, it sounds like we're on the same page, that we'll be able to operate school next year 5 days of instruction per week. And if you're coming to school, you come to school every day like a normal school year, and we should be able to accommodate face-to-face instruction like normal under, with of course safety strategies in place. That means we anticipate the continued use of face masks. We anticipate the continued focus on sanitation, sanitization, hand washing, all of that will still be in place. Physical distancing will still be a requirement. However, the requirement is that we maximize where possible. But again, knowing that if we're not able to meet the maximum or the recommended 3 feet, CDC has given us given the green light that as long as you have the other measures in place, that should not be a reason to not allow in-person learning. So we're just waiting for the actual language to be decided upon and put out in a public health guidance memo, the updated memo, so that we can push that out, with 100% certainty. Because right now we're still trying to get to that final point.
Right,
so once we get that, we'll push it out. Information about buses, we've been discussing with DPW the upcoming school year, what the challenges might be and so forth. What DPW has informed us is that, of course we're concerned about, as this is not even a pandemic issue. Normally we're concerned about the supply of buses, the availability of bus drivers in a given school year. We've been concerned about this coming school year because of the physical distancing requirements and because some of the fleet were still being utilized for the quarantine operations up at the airport. So, we're definitely working to return those buses to the school fleet. And I understand that they also should have additional buses that they were able to purchase from Dodea, from the vendor that was working with Dodea. And there's also an interest, and we're supportive of this, in trying to find resources to purchase even more new buses, knowing that some of those buses are really just, decades old and in need of replacement. So that's something that's positive. They are working with public health to finalize the busing guidance. So, by tomorrow, we're hoping to hear what that guidance is. I've looked at, over the CDC guidance with regard to transportation. There really isn't a distancing or a maximum capacity cap that they put in that guidance. It's more along the lines of face masking, open the windows if possible, and maximize physical distancing if possible. But they don't, certainly it gives us the flexibility to continue with normal bus operations next year. So that's what we're waiting to confirm.
John, is online learning totally eliminated as an option for the upcoming school year?
No, we had, obviously there's some board members and we've discussed just removing it as an option. But, when we were planning for the start of the school year, we don't just do that right in the middle of the summer. We were doing that way back in, March and April. And so given what we knew then, we still wanted to make sure that we gave an option to parents and students because we weren't sure about our capacity levels at that time. So we enabled them to register for online learning. And so we are going to meet that commitment to those families to continue with online learning, at least for the coming semester. Should we change direction, we do want to make sure families have notice so that they're able to adjust. So again, because we're still working through these issues this summer, we want to go ahead and preserve that. If you are a family, your kids are registered for online, we will continue to provide that online learning, and you will be assigned to an online class with dedicated online teachers who, I think this year what's different from last year is we're not requiring the teachers to do all, 3 models of learning. We're requiring them to either be an online teacher or you're going to be a classroom teacher, and we're going to be operating basically, parallel but separate models of learning this school year. Now, this could change, but I think if it does change, it's going to require, and I would recommend that we give our families, more than a couple of months notice so that they're aware and they can prepare for maybe next semester returning to face-to-face instruction. A lot of families want to see how it goes, and they want to wait for the vaccination opportunities for maybe the younger kids. So we understand all that, and we're really listening to make sure we're hearing what our community says.
John,
I think in addition to the like I said, in addition to the information we're pushing out, we are planning to go ahead and schedule additional Zoom sessions for parents as well in the evenings and maybe on a Saturday, just so we can also interact and answer questions through that method as well. We'll get that schedule out if that happens.
Sorry, John. So if what if there's a student who didn't sign up for the online, but maybe the parent's concerned with the Delta variant or whatever? Is it too late? Has that ship sailed?
I think they can go ahead and work to and apply to see if online is possible. But because of, there may be situations that we're hearing in schools based on the number of teachers and the number of online teachers and then the number of students who have registered for one or the other. It may not be possible to create another online class, if the online classes are full. So because what happens is you're taking a teacher from a classroom and then moving them to online, and if you don't have enough online students, that may be a challenge. So we're hearing that in some schools where we know that we can't afford to take one teacher to teach 3 kids, where there's a full class of 20 kids that need an instructor. But again, I think you need to check in at your school, because we did also create regional online classes for those classes where there were only a few kids in each school. But if you pooled them together, one teacher could teach, all of them at the same time, and, whether they're coming from different schools, as long as we had enough. So that's why we did the early registration, to make sure we can start to organize along those lines.
John, I wanted to follow up on something that was kind of mentioned, and I missed the whole discussion on it. There was something about uniforms and perhaps maybe assistance for those families that couldn't afford them.
Right. So we're monitoring and we're listening and we're paying close attention to the information that we're getting. The uniform policy has been reinstated for the school year, and that uniform policy means that you are required, if you're a face-to-face student, you're required to wear uniform, your school uniform, to class every day. Now, the policy has some flexibility around the bottoms. So the bottoms don't have to be from a specific vendor. They can actually be from any vendor, as long as they are appropriate and are in the same color. So that makes it, gives that some relief to some schools that have black, navy, khaki bottoms, and the kids want something that maybe fits better, or as long as it's appropriate and doesn't have any holes in it and it's not too short. That flexibility is in the current policy, so that's something that the kids can do. Unfortunately, if you go to JFK, like my daughter does, you cannot find a lot of green shorts on the market. But
no, because the Bucks won, so now there's plenty. Plenty of green shorts.
We might be going after some of the Milwaukee Bucks.
Go Bucks!
But for many other schools that works. So the only other issue, of course, is that because we're still in a pandemic situation, we did have discussion, the board members, student members of the board, about affordability and what the obstacles that presents to some of the families. So the vendors, from Royal Bix, as well as from from Modagino's were there, and that was a conversation with them 2 meetings ago, where we said, look, you normally provide vouchers to the schools to help with students. Unfortunately, we're going to be coming out of a pandemic. That need is going to be broader, and that need is going to be deeper for many families. So we're asking that you work with your schools to increase the level of assistance that you're providing them, because we know that affordability is going to be a key issue. I think our board members wanted to strike that compromise. I said, we do know that uniforms are beneficial. Some parents are saying it's actually more affordable to go with the uniform than try to find clothing for every day of the school year for our kids. But for those who can, we're looking to the vendors to continue their support for vouchers for uniforms. I think we're going to see how it goes this year. There are some board members who say, well, you know, if there's still an issue, we might want to revisit the entire uniform policy, you know, next year, before next school year, if we're not satisfied. So I'm very interested in seeing, you know, how this progresses. And we're still not at the beginning of the school year yet, but between now and then, I'm sure we're going to hear a lot of input about the availability and the cost of uniforms as they go, you know, as people go back to the stores to get ready for the school year.
I'm sorry, just one other thing, and if parents need to know, because you guys did approve a new grading. I'm not even sure if it's new. This new grading policy or system.
Yeah, so that information will be coming out I mean, it's a little bit more complicated than the uniforms are not, right? I mean, this is really shifting from you know, from our current grading system more towards a standards-based grading system, and that's something that's kind of been in the works for a while. And what's interesting is that when we were going through the pandemic and having a discussion about grading and how we would grade based on the different models of learning, I think interesting enough, the teachers came back and said, well, we ought to grade this way, and it actually went towards standards-based grading. Let's grade them on what they know, what they can demonstrate they know. Let's look at what proficiency looks like, so that we can then grade across several different models of learning and feel like we're giving you know, consistent marks. So that's what's happening in the elementary to middle school. There'll be standards-based grading. In the high school level, I believe we'll still maintain the percentage, the percentage calculation, but it also will be able to be converted into standards-based grading, and there's a scale for doing that. So as we enter the school year, we'll put out that information in the handbooks so that it's clearer to the parents. But I think if you've been through this pandemic, you've seen versions of this grading for your students, either as an interim, you know, report. And I know a lot of people would say, well, you know, what does a 2 mean? How much, you know, we've gone through that. What does a 3 mean? And we've been able to kind of address that over the course of the pandemic. And now I think we're going towards full implementation, which I think, again, will take some time for people to get used to. But, you know, it's something that we've been working towards, and which has been accelerated these last 18 months.
Okay. Yeah, I'll wait for the press release, because I know I was trying to listen to Joe last night, the night before, trying to explain it, and I was just getting confused. Yeah. So thanks, well, John.
Yeah, part of it's like, you know, looking at instead of an 0 to 100% scoring, and looking at it from like a 4.0 grade scale, right? And then shifting to that, and then understanding what the different levels means and how you interpret that through the course of getting the work back from your students. So what I've observed, because of course that's a big shift, and there's been some resistance to it within that, you know, we've got to convince people and show the teachers, really help people understand what's going on. But the kids, I think, have been exposed to it, and they come home. My son comes home and says, you know, this is what my proficiency standard is. Here's what I got. I got a level 3 on my on this assignment. This is what I needed to know, and this is what I didn't demonstrate. And they're able to explain it in ways that we've been hopeful that our teachers are also able to do as well, because you know, that's really the focus, getting our teachers to agree. When we went through the pandemic, it was really the teachers driving this, because it's hard to give grades out when you're getting them in different forms, a hard copy version, in-class instruction, online, and trying to figure out what does an A mean, you know, across the board. So really trying to focus in on demonstrating knowledge, demonstrating learning, and how that translates into a a fair grade across the board. And so again, we'll try to summarize all of this in the information that's going out, but it'll probably take a quarter or two this school year to really ensure that parents have their questions answered and get used to that shift. In high school really is where those grades count, because those grades count towards credit. The kids get competitive about their percentages because you got the merit scholars on the line, scholarships on the line, and so forth. So there was a different approach, to high school to kind of maintain the existing system, but allow for a conversion so that we could make sure that we were consistent, with the grading system we're using for elementary and middle.
Well, it sounds like your boy's a future superintendent in the making if he could break down the standards-based grading.
It really is good to see, though, that the teachers are really taking the lead and are driving it, because I think that's always been a concern. Whenever you push an initiative that makes sense and it sounds like this is where we want to go, and other places are going in the same direction, but you can't make it work unless your frontline teachers buy into it, believe it's a good idea, have invested and trained in it, and are willing to implement it. And again, it was a real surprise to me to hear the conversation over the pandemic period, because we were kind of giving a lot of flexibility to the teachers. And so when we heard where they were headed, we said, wow, wait a minute. We were so focused on buy-in, it sounds like they're trying to convince us that this is a good idea. And it's good to see things happen that way.
John, I just wanted to ask in closing, because I saw on your Twitter that you tweeted about your 10th year as superintendent. And I don't know how much of an answer we could get right here on the show, but I just wanted to ask, 10 years at GDOE, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of things that you're proud of. Maybe some of those and some of the things that you still want to accomplish as superintendent.
Yeah, I'm kind of focused more on things that need to get done, right? Things that still need to get done. I think that's kind of always what always drives me. And I think maybe when we look back after all is said and done, we can count accomplishments, and there are different things I'm very proud of. But what occupies my mind right now is just a lot of things that I just want to make sure we make progress on, that we promised. Things like Simon Sanchez. We're working on a master facilities plan, and we have $150 million dedicated to being able to improve our facilities. We've invested in technology, and so there's a lot of things we've been working towards that we're now able to kind of push forward, and we want to make sure those things happen. Looking back, we've done a lot of good things with regard to improving the graduation outcomes and graduation statistics for our kids. I'm proud of efforts like we're doing around JP Torres to make sure we don't kick kids out and try to get them toward the finish line. We have a real good partnership with our universities, but especially with our career technical education programs at Guam Community College, the Trades Academy, such a good partner, and we want to build on that work. So I'm always looking ahead. I think I just happen to kind of reflect because, at 10 years, when you look at the Chief Council of State School Officers across the country, of which I am one, there's 54 of them, and I'm at the top of the list. And I said, man, things have really changed. I used to be at the bottom, and now at 10 years, I'm the longest serving, basically, Chief State School Officer in the country. And that's it's something you want to just reflect on. And with that tweet, I guess, part of that was because of a note that I received from a student.
Let me read that note out, John, so we get the full picture here. So in your tweet, you wrote, entering my 10th year as superintendent, this year is my opportunity to reflect and appreciate the honor of serving our kids. Here's a note from a student a few years ago, which made my day at that time. Sir, I just wanted to say that I'm glad I had you as a superintendent. You were always there for all the students. You were everyone's biggest supporter while going to all events, even events that you didn't need to go to, like the J. Rotzi 1 a.m. 5K, LOL. I hope I see you as the superintendent for many more years to come, so the incoming students can have a chance to know what a great superintendent is like. Sending best wishes your way in the upcoming school years. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, it was that 1 a.m. Rotzi run that caught my eye.
Sealed the deal.
I mean, you can't turn a student down when they come to your office and say, we really like your support. And you say, well, what time is your 5K? It's at 1 a.m. It's, it's supposed to be this global, everybody around the world doing it at the same time. I said, okay, I guess I'll be there.
And this is pre-Zoom era, so you had to be there in person.
Yeah.
Right on.
Exactly.
Well, congrats,
There's no
John.
virtual 5K at the
Yeah.
time.
Right on. Well, thanks for your time and congratulations.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, John, we'll see you.
See you next week.
It's 9:03. Good morning.
Good morning.
Monday. Woohoo!
Yeah, I'm excited for GDOE because they haven't been full on this 80% returning
Yep.
students.
And
That's pretty
we're talking
huge.
face to face, in
Yeah.
class, in person, happening in real life in 21 days, Sabrina.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and so actually just reached out to Dr. Juan Flores, the Catholic school superintendent.